Good morning, everyone. I'm Chris Wiedelton. I'm the Vice President of Corporate Partnerships and Community Relations for UMUC. We welcome you all here today. We're pleased to have you, and we've got a number of things set up for our audience to serve you in full ways, because we've got prospective students, we've got current students, we've got folks that are interested in cybersecurity as a general growing topic. And we're going to jump right into our panel discussion, but I also wanted to make you aware of some, once the panel discussion breaks up, what is available to you here today. If you're interested in finding out how close you are to your cybersecurity degree, we have advisors here to assist you, and you'll see as you go out this door and that door, the entire floor is basically one big square. And we've got signs posted for each of our employer partners for you to spend some time with them. We've got all of our career services in different rooms, so you'll see the signs posted as you go around. So those advisors are there. If you'd like to know more about our undergraduate cybersecurity program, please stop by and speak with Jimmy Robertson, who's down here at my far right, who is our program chair for our undergraduate programs. Also, if you want to know more about our graduate cybersecurity programs, please stop by and see Dr. Emma Garrison Alexander. She's right here beside me. If you have any questions regarding financial aid, using financial aid with VA benefits or tuition assistance, we have counselors right down the hall to talk to you about that. Career services, if you're a student who would like to learn about all the free services we provide, if you're a current UMUC student or a prospective, our career counseling, resume review, those are all available at our career services table down the hall. Also, if you are an employer partner or work for someone where you'd like to know more about UMUC and how we partner with corporations, organizations to help both develop and provide talents, particularly in cybersecurity, but in all of our programs, we have a team from our Corporate Learning Solutions group that's here, and that's led by me, so those folks will be posted around as well. And then if you're a veteran, active military, or transitioning, number one, thank you for your service. Number two, please stop by and see our vet services calendar, our counselor from our Department of Veterans Affairs, which we have a member from the Department of Veterans Affairs who works directly with UMUC because of our large population and long history as a provider of education services to both our active duty and veterans. And if you'd like to apply to UMUC, we will be waiving all application fees today as part of this event. And we've got a room set up where you can actually go get questions answered and apply as a student right there. So again, welcome. We'll focus now on the panel. We're looking to stop this right at 12 o'clock. And then you'll have opportunities for food, networking, and all of the opportunities that I just described for you. So I want to start by introducing our panel. Starting right here with Dr. Emma. She is our program chair for cybersecurity for our graduate programs at UMUC. Next to her is Fred Fry, who is a senior associate with Booz Allen Hamilton. Next to him, to his right, is Mike Bruni, who is a talent acquisition manager in the mission support group at Leidos. Next to him is Chad Kaysen, who is the technical director for advanced cyber operations sector of the KeyW Corporation. And then at my far right is Jimmy Robertson, who is the program chair for computer science and software development and security at UMUC for our undergraduate programs. So just from a format for the questions, I'm going to be asking questions of the panel and start to mix in how different folks did respond, because there's a number of things we want to talk about. But for example, if I ask the question, why is cybersecurity important? Most of you in this room would know how to answer that. All you got to do is watch the news each day. But it would really be, a good answer would be, with the growing volume and sophistication of cyber attacks, ongoing attention is required to protect sensitive business and personal information, as well as safeguard national security. And I want you to say it that clearly in a specific sentence with all the proper pronouns. Everybody ready? All right. So I want to direct this first question to our industry panelists. As you know, cybersecurity affects every agency, program, and employee, and has become a greater challenge to manage as global networks become more susceptible to risk. With that in mind, can you talk a little bit about the current state of cybersecurity and the changing threat landscape, how it's impacting your company? And why don't we start with you, Chad, all the way to the right, and we'll just work our way down this way.
Sure, thank you. So the landscape is changing a lot in the sense that the adversary. And by the way, my background's on the offensive cyber operations side, so a lot of times when I talk about things, it's going to be from that slant, so just keep that in mind. But if you go back 10 years ago, 13 years ago or so, people had no idea what client-side exploitation was. There was no concept of the cyber kill chain. Now, over time, as things became very popular, became in the news, banks are compromised, financial institutions, this notions of skate of attacks are inside CNN every other day. People kind of get worried about this stuff. It's in your face now, and now it's a degree program, right? So I would say on the offensive side, what's happened to the threat is that they've shifted from, hey, I have this $1 million piece of software, whether it be a Russian business network investment to a piece of malware, or maybe, to speak frankly, another nation-state actor interacting with a clear defense contracting network to extract intellectual property to build their version of the stealth fighter. Or whatever it may be, they're shifting from this notion of, hey, I'm going to have some really special secret sauce that it's going to take a very long time to reverse engineer and figure out, to, I would say, more generic malware, stuff you can go download off of a Tor hidden service, or even stuff you'd find off like the Metasploit framework, Poison Ivy. If you're in the business, you know what I'm talking about, stuff that's kind of out there floating in the wild. And they use this to initially breach the network through your client-side exploitation, and then transition to more sensitive tool sets. I say that to why is the landscape changing is because, well, as it's grown in popularity and the spotlight's been shined on the cockroaches that try to scurry to the various corners of the internet, they now have to adapt. And what does that mean? Well, we're perpetually caught in this kind of Tom and Jerry, cat and mouse type game, where as the defenders, I have new indicators of compromise. I'm trying to deploy that with my systems to catch them. Well, now you're starting to see functionality can shift both with the signature diversification with the static binary signatures, as well as maybe heuristics, behavioral stuff. And so what does that mean to you? Right? You're like, well, gee, Chad, you just told me a whole bunch of stuff about the offensive side. But what does that mean to the industry? Well, that means now that great IOC indicator of compromise or signature you get down from your cloud AV vendor or whatever it is you pull off of forum group, it is only as good as they change that signature. And if they can move faster inside your thought process cycle, the OODA loop for those military folk in here, then they can still achieve their effects. So we in the industry always get caught up in the fact that, oh, okay, you breached my network. We train that way. We do that all the time. But that's not what they're there for. They don't really care about breaching your network. The means to get there is not important. It's what they get from it is what matters to them. And so they will adapt and change to meet this new awareness. And the problem with that is that now, how do we go from sense to action time from the Verizon report that's out there for 100 and some days, right? Well, if a nation-state actor or even a crimeware guy is inside your network for 100 days, he's got pretty much everything they want, right? So how do we get that time down from months down to weeks, down to seconds, right? And that's the challenge that we see in the industry as we kind of go forward in both building technology and also training awareness. How do you detect patterns and things of that nature? So really, it's that the game is changing yet again, right? So how do we get our awareness of their access inside that network down to a time that we can affect them and deny them the access to the data that they want?
Mike, how about you?
Great. Well, I'm actually going to, so I'm Mike Bruni. I'm more from the talent acquisition side with the defense industry, and I'll speak from that perspective. I'm certainly not as technical as my counterpart Chad here is. So to give you sort of an outlay of how it's changing from a hiring and employment standpoint, it changes very quickly, as most of you probably know, not only the technology, but the economic landscape. So what we've seen, being in this business now almost 18 years or so, and I'll focus on, say, the last 10, when cybersecurity really started to become a household name. When I started recruiting in the cybersecurity industry, it was defense, all computer defense, firewalls, things of that nature. We've come a long way. As Chad mentioned, there's an offensive piece, there's preemptive piece. We used to wait till the adversary was right up against our network and then defend and react. Well, there's a lot more than that today. I think from an employment standpoint, it starts with cyber policy. So all of you folks who are out here, either in the industry or pursuing opportunities or looking to make a jump within industry, there's a lot, I think, that still needs to be done to really set the foundation for the cyber market. Does anyone know why cyber became such a such a popular term? Anybody know? Because I don't know that we've actually defined what cyber is. Cyber is defined by whoever is basically giving you their perspective or their opinion. The fact of it is, when cyber appeared in legislation on Capitol Hill, it tended to get funded. So that's why a lot of people started to use it, which is why the term snowballed over time and became cybersecurity. Depending on who you ask, cyber could be cyber defense, offensive cyber, okay? CNO, CND, things of that nature. Signals intelligence is considered cyber, right? Software development. Okay, a lot of us in industry do development. We develop systems. That's considered cyber. So it really depends on, it's a very broad term, okay? And it changes very, very quickly and constantly. But I think what we need to see right now, and as things change, once cyber policy is defined, and what I mean by that is, once our folks down here in Washington really define what an offensive cyber attack is, there could be attack against, obviously, OPM or a military network, or what is the policy there? What is the policy if a lone wolf in rural China wants to hit Bank of America? There's no real defined policy of how we react to that. And I think as you're going to see over the course of time, this is starting to come to the floor down on the Hill. And once we really write that policy and really pass that legislation for that policy, you're going to see the industry take a serious jump, not only on the government side. I mean, we live here, obviously, in the DC metro area. We have Fort Meade right in our backyard here, very popular on the government side. There's a huge commercial market out there as well. A lot of companies right now employing their own cyber armies to fend off the attacks because there isn't a policy. You can't call the United States Army when you're working at Goldman Sachs in New York City and say, hey, I just got hit, we think it's coming from Russia. They can't respond. So the policy's different. So it's certainly a hot market. Skill sets, again, as I had mentioned, they're pretty broad. But I think as we go forward, what's going to change is once policy is established, I think the landscape will completely change. And that'll be better for all of us in this room and for you. I mean, certainly, I don't like to say that, it's obviously a dangerous world from a cyber perspective. But as things get rolling from an employment standpoint, you'll continue to see this proliferate and snowball.
Fred, from Booz Allen's standpoint, how are you all seeing the landscape?
Absolutely. So I've seen quite a bit of change in the last 15 years. I entered into the security market around the late 90s, and I think Chad did a great job of covering a lot of that, so I won't rehash that, but I will talk about one thing is the market has changed tremendously in the last 15 years. I also have a little bit more of an offensive security type background. I've always been a curious person. I've always wanted to know how things work, and if that speaks to anybody in the audience, I'm really excited. Keep nurturing that. And so in the last 15 years, it was a very small niche market, the computer security or the offensive security. We would go to Black Hat and DEF CON, and I remember when it was Alexis Park, and it was you could really have good access to people that were, the subject matter experts. In the last 15 years, it's blown up. It's tremendously, skyrocketed. So that access is a lot less these days. One thing is how to differentiate yourself as a potential recruit, as well as your skills. How do you differentiate yourself? And I think we're going to get into this a little bit later. But I think networking and speaking with companies, figuring out what those skills are and differentiating yourself. Because as the need has increased, so has the market. So I think that's one interesting topic that we'll discover a little bit is how can we differentiate ourselves in our training and in our skill sets to be marketable and hone our skills.
That's great. And Jimmy and Dr. Emma, how are these needs that we just heard from these folks and speaking for the industry, how are those taken into consideration when we develop our programs and curriculum with cybersecurity?
We always listen to what's going on in the outside world. We actually have panels and groups that come in from industry to help us design our curriculum. And it's really important because it's changing all the time. I was just, less than a month ago, we were at Cybersecurity Curriculum Council, and we had people from industry come in and help us shape our programs. We review our programs with them, and they give us guidance on what looks good and what we need to change based on that feedback.
Well, I'm going to do a little bit of truth in lending. I am the program chair for the cybersecurity program, the area that's focused specifically on the technology side. But my background, I'm an engineer. I spent 25 years at the National Security Agency. So I've worked in SIGINT, information assurance. I've worked with the predecessor to U.S. Cyber Command, and I've also worked in technology and systems. So I spent my formative years in a very secure environment, and I finished my career as a CIO at the Transportation Security Administration. That's important because as a CIO, I had cybersecurity responsibilities, information assurance responsibilities, operations and engineering responsibilities, software application development responsibilities, provisioning responsibilities around all the technologies within the organization. I mention that because when I think about the needs of industry and government, I don't just think about it from the standpoint of an academic, because I've lived in that environment. So when I think about what we need to do as a university to educate, to prepare individuals for the cyber careers that they are interested in, and matching that with the skills that are needed in industry and government, I come at it from a very practical perspective. Our students that come to us are generally not right out of college. Once in a while we do have some of those students, but they're working professionals. They are professionals that maybe have about 15 years of work experience. Many of the individuals are already in the field, and they are looking to enhance their skill sets, to build their credentials as a part of what they need for their career. And some of them want to learn new skills and techniques within the cyber arena. So that's one group of people that we actually serve. So when we look at our curriculum, we're looking to match that. We also have a group of individuals that come to our university and want to get into cyber. They are career changers. They may be sociologists by trade. They may be English professors. I've had retired football players, professional players in my class. So we also design the curriculum so that those individuals are able to come in and do the career changing as well. One of the things that we have done, and this is an initiative that's going on right now at the University of Maryland University College, is what we call competency-based education, which for our particular application, it's called the Enhancing Learning Model. Now, when this program was first stood up, we worked with SMEs, the private sector individuals came in and partnered with the university. We worked with academic professionals. We worked with individuals who have worked in the field, and they served as SMEs to us. So we have what we call scholarly practitioners who are actually a part of helping us to develop the curriculum to ensure that those things that are incorporated into our program matches what is being looked for in industry. Our students need real skills that they can take back to the job market. In our enhancing learning model, one of the things we're doing as we prepare to roll out, I'd say, the next generation of the program is really looking at not just what students need to know, which has always been kind of traditionally what the academic environment did, but we're also looking at ensuring that students can leave the classroom and they're able to actually do something. So for example, in our classes, we use tools that are used in the workplace, Snort, Wireshark. If you are in the industry, you recognize those particular tools. If you're in digital forensics, we use Encase and FTK. So we have taken real life techniques and tools and brought them into the classroom and not set them up in isolation, just do a lab, right? Our students always want more labs. But in this enhancing learning model, we have said, we don't want you to just be able to know something, use the tools, but we want you to master that tool in such a way that when you leave the classroom and go back into the workforce, go back to your job, go back to a new job, change careers, you'll actually have real life skills that can be used in the workforce. So we're really about matching what's in our curriculum with what's actually needed in the workforce. We want that to translate out of the classroom. We want mastery. We want those skills to be developed to a point that they're usable once a student goes back to the workforce. So that's been important to us. In determining what kinds of skills are needed, we have looked at DoD 8570. We have looked at the Department of Labor. They have a cyber model that they put together for industry to look at what those skills are that the companies and industries are looking for. And we also looked at the National Initiative on Cyber Education, which was put together by NIST, and it's being used across the government. We also looked at the work that DHS, Department of Homeland Security, is doing. So we have taken that work that was already being done to help industry and the government, and we're pulling them into the classroom to help us develop our curriculum, and especially our next generation curriculum.
So let's pick up there for our employer partners. Two-part question. What are you doing to, with some estimates out there now that there's 200,000 jobs needing to be filled in cybersecurity. What are you doing to invest in that workforce gap between the needs and the actual available talent? And what specific skills for those folks that are sitting here wanting to get into that? Even if they're career changers, what are the specific skills that you're looking for to fill that? Why don't we start with you, Fred, and work our way
Absolutely.
down.
I sit on the board of investment for this exact problem at Booz Allen. So there's a huge need. There are tons of jobs out there. The trick is getting the right skills in the right positions. So about 3 years. I've been with Booz for 15 years. I've never seen such an investment in our staff in the last 3 years. In the last 3 years, we've tremendously ramped up. We've more than doubled our tuition assistance programs. We've also set up additional things called like the fellowship program. Our fellowship program is effectively like a Shark Tank idea think tank, where we've found that we have a lot of very bright individuals that have very great ideas. They sit at client site and they innovate all the time for our clients, but sometimes they have a really, really great gem. We've created a path in Booz Allen where they can bring that to a board. So that's one of my roles, is to sit on that board, evaluate ideas and products, and then invest in people. So we're actually investing tens of thousands of dollars for an initial proof of concept. We give them time, labor, materials to do so. Then they come back to the board and show what they've made progress in 3 months. And then we take it from there if we need to further invest, or if we need to spin in some other groups or some other skill sets to polish it off. We also set up things like Pi Nights and Capture the Flags. Pi Nights are a pretty innovative challenge-based. We have a great need for specific skills like Java development, Python scripting. So we developed almost a game around Python scripting. And so we have this scoreboard and challenge board, and we open it up to the public. Everybody can come in. We usually have a sellout crowd, over about 100 people. We do it once a month. And people can go to the Noob Nook. We call it the Noob Nook, where you learn Python, or you can compete in the challenges, where we have actual hands-on Python scripting challenges that we set forth. You solve the problem, you get a flag, you submit it to the scoreboard, and you see your name go up on the leaderboard. We have a similar exact same idea for hacker challenges, so Capture the Flags. We have a team inside that 3 years ago they said, hey, I want to, they were on the side competing in these Capture the Flags like DEF CON and some of the world championships. And we said, wow, why don't we invest in these people? They're some of our brightest people. Let's invest in them. So now that's grown into, now we put on our own Capture the Flags, looking to share that knowledge and spread that knowledge within Booz Allen and externally. So yeah, in the last 3 years, we've done some tremendous investing. You have to keep your skills up to date. You can't just get a degree and then 5 years later expect that to be relevant. Got to keep on that training cycle.
Excellent. Mike?
Sure. To also further some of that, absolutely. I think from a hiring perspective, which of course I'm fully embedded in addition to some of the things that my counterpart here had mentioned, industry is doing a lot of those cyber challenges. One thing to point out for those of you that are interested in opportunities, say in the federal government contracting, defense industry, certifications in the cybersecurity field are extremely important. We in industry are contractually obligated to provide expertise and folks to support government contracts based on our minimum requirements. And a lot of those are very certification heavy. All education is good, obviously. But what you want to do is really do the research and find out what certifications are going to benefit you long term, okay? Look at those organizations. So really give that some thought, because a lot of that is we have to meet our minimum requirements. So take advantage of those opportunities once obviously you do your self-assessment of what you want to pursue around the cybersecurity field. Also, from an employer standpoint, employment brand. Who takes it seriously? Who offers the best brand in cybersecurity? Things like cyber challenges, gaming and things of that nature. Obviously the way the organization presents itself to you. So to answer the question of how do we gain the best talent, it's the foot that we put forward. Who's got the best foot? Who knows this mission? Who can deliver for the customer? Who's doing the things on the cutting edge? So certainly we're gonna encourage everyone to stay on the cutting edge of technology. As it's already been stated, changes very quickly. So a lot of that, the onus falls to you to stay on top of those waves and those trends. But look at employee brand, look at companies' culture, look at organizations that offer that. Who's the best fit for you? Because again, this is a constantly changing industry and environment. You have to stay on the cutting edge, both the company and the individual. But it is. We find it a competitive market. We're all up here fighting over the same talent. We're all fighting over you. So keep that in mind as you approach the industry, whether it be private industry, federal government. Look at what the best fit is for you. But there's a lot of opportunity out there to show your expertise and skills.
So Chad, the same thing. What's the investment you all are making, and what kind of skills are you looking for?
Yeah, so first of all, there's no such thing as like the perfect employee with the right skills. That is a pipe dream. It doesn't happen. What's really interesting, and especially if you're in this market space, there's this clear defense contracting world where if you actually look at labor requirements, they ask for things that only people who have been doing them for a period of time can do, and that makes this weird like chicken and the egg thing. What do I do? And we get that, right? We totally get that. And what we look for in an individual are things like, can you work well with others? Because while we're in a very technical field, you do interact with human beings on a day-to-day basis. And I do that all the time, and my colleagues will tell you that I wish I didn't have to, right? But I have to get along with people because we have to work together to solve hard problems. The next one is critical thinking skills, because there's nothing that you're going to learn. I'm not disagreeing with the cert stuff. I think it's all important. We all have labor categories and minimum requirements to learn. But there's nothing that you're going to learn that's going to help you necessarily solve that next problem. That's something you have to dig deep in, roll up your sleeves to go do. So your ability to critically think and solve those problems is super important. And then when you're in those high stress environments, are you the person who gets mad and flustered and starts yelling at everyone? Are you part of the team and says, you know what, I got it, this is a bad day for us? Especially if you're on the defense side, you're gonna have quite a few bad days. If you're on the offensive side, there's some really hard problems at really odd times of the night that you're gonna have to roll up your sleeves and work with other people, and you're tired and you're hungry and the caffeine gave out on you and you still gotta do it. All right? So we totally get that you're not gonna be perfect, but we look for those core kind of traits that you may have. And then what we do, I can't speak for everyone else, but I can speak for KW, is that we invest into you. So we say, okay, good, you meet the requirements of the type of people that we're looking for, and then we're going to train you. Yes, certification pipelines as required, but we have our own training internally. And that training is based on our expertise of training the interactive operators and analysts that perform the kind of cutting edge mission both in defense and offense on an every day-to-day basis. And so what we want to do is bootstrap you with hands-on experience and challenge you, stress you, to get you prepared to work in that job role. And I will tell you, that's the type of training you should be looking for. I mean, multiple choice tests are great, but they never help you do anything on the job. But things that can front-load experience so that you can say, I remember this time here, I did this, that was bad, don't do that next time. Or, hey, I remember this and it went well, I will try this. I have some bit of knowledge that I can draw off of. All right, so that's the challenge that we have to overcome. No one's perfect, no one has 100% of all the skills, but do you have the core set of stuff that can help you get there and allow us to invest into you to help you achieve your goals?
So for Dr. Emma and Jimmy, you heard them talk about what Chad just talked about with kind of the not soft skills, because there's nothing soft about that, but getting along with each other and being able to have those critical thinking skills. But then also, Mike talked about those certifications, CompTIA, A+, Networks Plus, Security Plus, all of the different acronyms. What kind of programs exist that can help folks? As they said, it's kind of on you to go out and stay on top of it and get those things. What kind of programs exist for us to be able to do that?
Yeah, well, from the undergraduate level, we have a lot of certification courses that help you prepare for the baseline certifications from Network Plus to A+ to CISSP, all of those, Cisco and Microsoft, they're in our computer network and security area. And so not only do you learn to prepare for the certifications while you're taking those courses, but you're also learning those things that they talk about, the critical thinking skills. You're writing papers, you're interacting with groups, you're actually doing projects in addition to the multiple choice questions you've got to study for on the lab sim tests and other quizzes that you have to take throughout there. So we think that we fulfill both of those things. We help you get certified as well as help you beyond the certification, help solve those problems that you're not going to see in the classroom, that you might not see the really challenging ones till you get out in the workplace. So we work on that. We don't spoon feed you. We really want you to be able to solve these problems. We challenge you to go out there and do those. So I think we try to get both of those areas for you, so you can do the certifications if you want, and you can also, at the same time, making sure you get those critical thinking and problem-solving skills, which is probably the most valuable thing that employers are looking for.
So I would like to address a part of the feedback we got regarding what industry and government is looking for, as well as the certification piece. I think as you think about your future and where you want to be from a career perspective into the future, you've got to think about kind of the immediate, what do I want to do now, and also what do I want to do longer term. So I think that's where getting the degree comes in, as well as getting the certifications and then building, right? Because you have the first level certification, and builds up all the way up to CISSP, and then additional certifications as well. So I think when you're thinking about yourself, you're not just thinking about one point in time. I think you want to think more long term. What will a master's degree enable me to be able to do within the cyber realm from a career perspective? What will that enable me to do? What will the certifications enable me to be able to do, short term as well as long term? Within our graduates program, we cover many of the subjects that are part of those certifications, and we are currently mapping our curriculum to some of the certifications as well. So that's a work in progress at the graduate level, but based on our overall curriculum, we cover many of the areas that are a part of those certifications. But I think you want to think about not just a single thing. You want to think about the whole litany of potential training and educational opportunities that are going to prepare you as a cyber professional today, tomorrow, and into the future. Because today you might be focused on wanting to be a penetration tester. In the future, you may want to be a manager or a leader somewhere in the cyber field within your organization or within some other organization. So I would just encourage you not to think narrowly about what it is you need to best prepare yourself to be a cyber professional.
Can I make one more comment, Chris?
Sure,
just on
go ahead,
this?
Mike.
Coming from an employer who hires standpoint, keep in mind, and we're talking about a lot of different things up here, and it's all good stuff, but keep in mind, and I'm coming at you from, and I'm automatically assuming that a number of folks in the audience here are actively pursuing opportunities in this field. There's two pieces of this in pursuing opportunities and pursuing career. There's identifying the opportunity, there's identifying the organization and mixing those together, right? Then there is the assimilation and obviously growth inside an organization, okay? So I'm speaking to you now, put my my career counseling hat on. Don't get those mixed up. Certainly you take the back end, the assimilation, into consideration, but the strategy of actually landing the opportunity of choice is in and of itself. You have to have a complete strategy for that before everything else. Does that make sense? Don't jump that, because what I tend to see is, a lot of folks mixing that. The question that you hear in interviews that, of course, by the way, I would never ask is, where do you want to be in 5 years? Well, I don't ask that question because length of employment in this area is under 3. You know what I mean? So chances are 5 years you're probably going to be working for somebody else. So my point is, think about the opportunity, and think about the strategy of getting that opportunity. Because as much as we say it, everybody in here has skills or expertise, it's still going to be highly competitive when you face off in the market, okay? You are going to interview with 5 other people at any given time with the same type of skill set, okay? So there's a strategy for that, okay? Be well researched, be well educated on the organizations that you pursue, be it industry, government, what have you, but keep that in mind to separate those two. It's the strategy of landing the opportunity, and then obviously the strategy of how you're going to assimilate and grow in that organization. Does that make sense?
And it sets up well. We actually had the opportunity for students to submit questions ahead of time, and let's keep going with that, because Fred and Chad, I'd love to hear your perspectives on actually exactly what Mike just said, because the student said, if you look at the cybersecurity over the past few years, we've experienced more and more sophisticated targeted attacks. As a student, it's difficult to keep up with those emerging technologies in such an ever-changing field. As a computer networks and security major, I've learned a number of different technologies, but from you all's perspective, what are you looking for most there? We talked about skills, but what about the actual languages, the real hard skills? What are those things that they need that you would give advice that you all are looking for?
Absolutely. I mean, specific skills, all of us are rather large companies, so we have many different job opportunities, and it really comes back to what you want. So, there's many different opportunities. You have to know what kind of career you're going for. One thing I'd like to point out is networking. I cannot understate networking as you're doing right now. Getting into the field, talking with people, meeting people. Some of our best hires are, personal referrals. So having somebody that can vouch for you, or or a club, a cybersecurity club, or UMUC has many different avenues for that. They have partnerships with industry. These kind of avenues are invaluable. So I could talk about a specific skills. We hire malware reverse engineers that know IDA Pro, Ali Debug. We hire penetration testers, as was mentioned before. People that know how to use Nmap, Metasploit, things like that. We hire people that have Java and software development skills. Python's a big skill that we're looking for, and the list goes on. But that's only just a small purview, and by small I mean 500 people small. But there's many other job opportunities out there. And then the other thing that I wanted to touch on is certifications and education. They take you so far, but I think, as Chad alluded to, is passion. Passion is a real big thing. I'll give a little hint. If we ever meet in the future, I'm also a hiring manager. If we ever meet in the future, one of my questions that I give, and I'll give you some inside information, is what does your home network look like? What do you do as a hobby? And it doesn't have to be computer related, but technical related. Are you an Arduino hacker? Are you developing robots on the side? I love people that are passionate. We work 9 to 5, that's great, and we don't ask you to work longer than 9 to 5, but we love people that just immerse themselves in that technology, people that have hobbies at home. That's when that passion comes out in an interview process, that's a red light that I want to invest in you, because I know that you're going to take what you learn in the classes, in college, in the certification programs, and take it to the next level. And that's the kind of people that we need to hire, is not somebody that has a checkbox for a certification, but somebody that has passion to take that base knowledge and expand upon it. So think about that and how that might come across in an interview. Your passion for what you do and your experience, and showing an initiative that you're willing to go above and beyond. That'll differentiate you and set you apart, I think, in the field.
He said if you ever meet him in the future, reminder, you can meet him in the future in about 10 minutes in one of the rooms around the corner. So
Immediate gratification. Great.
there you go. Perfect. Chad, how about you?
No, I agree with everything you said. I would also add that for the technology piece, it's an interesting challenge, especially people coming into the market space. Like, well, there's all these little buzz term type things. Well, look at what they do. What are they performing? What's their function? You'll find that there's a category that they fall into that provides a certain set of functions that people use them for. And you can kind of abstract your own roadmap of technology and apply it. So it's particularly like languages, right? Pick your poison, Java, Python, whatever it may be. Be functional at it, right? I tell you, don't put it on a resume unless you can write a method and on the spot about doing something with it. Okay, that's very important, because I see people who play with things all the time, and then when I ask them to do a very simple method that they can accept some variables and add or subtract or print them out, they kind of fall down in the interview. So just be very honest about it and describe what that is. But pick some functional language like a Java, Python, or Ruby or something like that. So they'll get you a wide swath. But don't forget that at one time there were lower level languages, right? And I will always tell you, the deeper and lower you go, the more applicable it is up the stack, right? So I'm going to dirty word, assembly, right? No one likes to talk about it, but there's a lot of things that surround. Well, yeah, right. There's a lot of things that surround that make you extremely powerful when it comes to the job environment. And by the way, that's a skill set that's dying. They don't teach it anymore, right? At least not most programs. And so it's a dying skill set, but it's extremely relevant every day in both offensive and defensive market space, right? As for, what was the second part of the question?
Just really as far as what you think they need from a preparation standpoint. So, I mean,
Yeah,
whether
so-
it's skills or not.
I will go back to the education piece that's been hit on too. I just want to recap that. So clearly there's this thing called the labor category. If you don't know about it, you will when you get into our market space. And that kind of defines what you are as an industry standard, what you can do. The education piece of that is extremely important, right? That's why we're all here. So you do need to do that. And that's going to help you personally, like the people have been saying on the panel, to broaden your goals and achieve things. And certifications also, they're great for getting into the door on the resume piece, but it's what you do with that knowledge is super important. And that passion that was talked about is awesome. When we see that, our eyes light up. So we oftentimes start poking around and say, oh, well, hey, what are you interested into? What do you do in your spare time? Some people say, I do hobby robotics. We're like, okay, great. So the language and skill sets they pick up on that, which may not be a one-for-one mapping into the cybersecurity realm, actually do have some benefit, right? And taking on new challenges and stuff. So absolutely, we like to see people who kind of have a hobby of it, live and breathe it, and that means that you're really interested into it, you have the passion for it, then so when we put money and invest into you to grow your career path, we're going to get return on that investment.
All right, so with 5 minutes left, let's start with Jimmy and work all the way down, and let's go with that on you touched a couple times on resume, and really for somebody who's out there in the market, whether they're headed into it or they're currently looking to get into it, what should they be doing to prepare resume-wise, marketing themselves, those things that really could seal the deal? I love how you said that, Chad, of makes your eyes light up. What's the stuff for the audience that would make your eyes light up? And Jimmy, if you want to start with that as far as from
Sure.
a preparation or getting themselves ready for the market, that'd be great.
Sure. Well, the first thing, like I say, is there is room for you in the cybersecurity field. It's, as I mentioned before, it's very diverse. Policy, computer networking, programming, computer forensics, software engineering, information architecture, all those things are out there. So you can have all sorts of levels of interest. You could be not very technical, maybe you're on the policy side. So whatever skill set you feel comfortable with, things that you really, I guess the key is, what do you want to do? What do you like and enjoy doing? Because you don't want to be doing something that you're not comfortable with. Some people don't like programming. It can be challenging. I think it's very rewarding. I love programming. But it's not for everyone. So it could be the policy is what's right for you. And whatever the career is, you can get the training. You can get it here. You can get it at UMUC. There's lots of places you can get it. But be prepared through your studies, through your hobbies and other things on that area that you really like to do. Because if you find that, this passion that the gentleman talking about here, that's exactly what you're going to get. And it'll come through in your interviews, and you're going to get in that door that you want to be in.
Chet?
Yep. Like I said, be honest in your resumes, invest in your own skill sets, meet us halfway, right? And have a kind of an idea where you want to go, and that's extremely important.
Mike, anything we didn't touch on as well as you come down as?
Absolutely. Just to kind of further that point, when we look at it and kind of going back to the two pieces, the pursuit and then ultimately the assimilation, resume is a perfect example. What is going to get me to basically reach out to you, right? I'm going to be reaching out to you for different reasons. I'm not a developer. I'm not a technical person. Yet you're probably going to come into contact with me before ever going in front of these gentlemen. And the fact is, you have to woo me by your hard skill sets, okay? Let's face it, if you put Java on a resume and you put your passionate, which one am I looking at, right? So this should bring it home. I can't see passion in a resume. I can't see your passion until I actually contact you. The focus in a resume, the strategy behind a resume is to show me and articulate and convey your expertise as it relates to my requirements. Does that make sense? It's one step in the process. When you get through that step, then yes, when we talked about hard skills and soft skills, honestly, it's 20% hard skills, 80% soft skills, okay? Well, I'm a resource. As this gentleman had mentioned, he likes what you do in your spare time. How are you going to know that? Well, you can ask me. So there's a whole strategy behind getting into it, but the resume is where you demonstrate your hard skills, okay, to get the opportunity to show me that other percent in those soft skills. So again, that goes into the strategy of that.
Absolutely. The resume, let's talk about the resume for a bit. The resume keywords are great, right? You're eventually going to be screened initially by somebody that's maybe not so technical, right? So you need to demonstrate those key skills. The other thing with a resume is it's also you're marketing yourself. So to Chad's point, you have to be very honest with your resume, but make sure you highlight your growth and where you want to go, and without crossing a boundary of saying, I'm a great Java developer. We've been picking on Java. I had, a personal story is I had, I rolled out a corporate PKI solution 15 years ago. And 8 years ago, 5 years ago, I'm still getting calls about that. So I eventually, on my resume, started dwindling that down because I had many other skills that I wanted to put forward and show. So that's really your way of marketing to us. Also, the initial, when I look at a billboard, you have 30 seconds. So when I look at a resume, I like to really see right up front, what you're about, where you want to go, and what your skills are. So also think of your resume as marketing to us, where you want to go, because that way you'll get the right calls for the right jobs that you want to grow in. The other thing that I just forgot, so I will yield back my time. It's really important too, but if you come in the Booz Allen room afterwards, I'm sure that I will think about it and I will let you know.
Oh, he just gave you a teaser. That was good.
Yeah.
I like that. Dr. Emma, bring us home.
Yeah, so Jim talked about the technologies and having those types of skills. I want to talk about a couple of other things. One is preparation. Make sure you're prepared for the job that you want. Someone mentioned doing your homework, and that's really understanding what the possibilities are in terms of employment. Often people will say, what's the job title, right? So if you're in the civilian world, let's say in DHS, well, all of our cybersecurity professionals are called IT specialists. So there's not a title that's attached to it, but you can work in a variety of areas. You can work in compliance. You can work at a security operations center. You can work on a penetration team. You can work on an audit team. So there are a lot of different areas. So I would say try to get an understanding of what's the various areas in which you can work, because I think you'll have a better understanding of what it is you really want to do and what really matches up with what your interests are and also what your skills are, instead of just focusing on what is the title of the position, because that varies between companies, it varies between government agencies as well. So make sure that you're prepared for the job that you want. I think that's very important. The second thing has to do with partnership, and one I'm going to talk about are internal partnerships. Within our student population, they want to work for two organizations, and you probably can guess them. They want to work for the National Security Agency, and they don't want to work for the Department of Homeland Security. And I often remind my students that this is what's changed in the last 10 to 15 years. Everybody, every company, every small business, medium-sized business, large business need cybersecurity professional. So those skills are needed across the marketplace, whether you're in finance, whether you're in utilities, whether you're in IT, they're needed across the marketplace. So you may already be in an organization, internal partnership, where you can work with your CIO or your Chief Information Security Officer or the head of your IT department to help you transition into the type of position that you would like without ever leaving your company. And then the external partnerships gets back to the networking and understanding what organizations do. If you want to go work for Booz Allen, understand what those opportunities are at Booz Allen so that you can match your resume, your training, your education to what they're actually looking for. So you don't necessarily have to leave where you are today and go to NSA or DHS. There are many, many, many opportunities out there, and you hear about them, but I don't know if they're always framed in a way that people really understand that there are really categories of areas where you can actually practice your cybersecurity profession. So, I mean, I think this is fantastic, and you have so many different types of things that you can do, and you don't have to do one single thing. You know, you can do a number of different types of job responsibilities.
Well, that brings us to the end of our time. Thank you very much. I want to thank Jimmy Robertson and Dr. Emma for representing UMUC. I want to thank Chad Kaysen with the KeyW Corporation, Mike Bruni from Leidos, and Fred Fry from Booz Allen Hamilton. Again, they will all be here to answer questions. We'd love for you to stay. We've got lunch. We thank you all for taking the time out of your day. And reminder, all of the programs that I talked about from UMUC, we've got folks right down the hall that are ready and willing to answer any questions that you have. But let's have a round of applause for our panel and thank them. So thank you all for joining us, and please stay and relax with us a little bit.